I will go ahead and call us to order at 7 p.m. And we are officially in session for the select board meeting of Monday, April 22nd, 2024. I will start with announcements and board openings. For board and committee openings, we have the Community Preservation Committee. There was one opening. On the Conservation Commission, we have two openings.
Excuse me, Caroline?
Yeah.
Because we're at Zoom, all things have to be done by voice vote. So you need to take attendance of the members here to get form to note that the form's here for the record. Sorry.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll just take a roll call vote. Rosie, we'll start with you.
Rosie Kennedy here.
Bill.
Bill Wilson present.
And Caroline Beaulieu present. And we'll obviously loop Tom in when he arrives. Okay. Back to our boards and openings. Council on Aging, we have two associate openings. The Finance and Advisory Committee, we have one associate opening. The Historic District Commission, there are two openings for 3-year terms and two openings for 2-year terms. One of whom must be a resident of the Historic District and one must be a resident realtor. So lots of openings on the Historic District Commission. There is one opening on the Human Rights Commission, and there is one associate opening on the Planning Board, as well as one associate opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
How do I turn? Or how do I?
I'm happy to take a few minutes to do any updates from board members. For those who see a familiar but new face, Rosie is joining us for her first meeting as our newest select board member. So welcome, Rosie. I'm assuming you don't have any updates, but if you do, I'll certainly be happy to have you them. But Bill, any updates to share?
Yeah, actually, Rosie from the Master Plan Committee was at the last meeting we had last week. I was on vacation, actually, for school vacation. But Rosemary, did you want to give an update on that?
Sure,
Jump right in.
Yeah, sure. I have two things. Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and thank you to everybody who supported me. And so right to work. I have updates from the Master Plan Steering Committee and also just a couple of questions from the Council on Aging. So Master Plan Steering Committee, we met last week and we went over the finished product and endorsed it to go on to the planning board. There were a few little glitches, but nothing that the planning board couldn't iron out. And I believe Marnie Crouch was there, and she's the chair of the planning board, so she will take care of that. Just some language that should be put more in the infinitive. Okay, there we go. And pretty happy with the finished product. I think a tremendous amount of work went into it, and really proud of everybody who stuck it out for all those years and finally got it done. So happy about that. And then secondly, the Council on Aging, I wanted to talk about for a minute. I think I directed my questions to you, Joe, but the Friends of the COA have generously donated a new ping pong table. The Center for Active Living at the Hamilton Senior Center is alive and moving beautifully along with the times, and people are coming in droves. So my question is, we would like to be able to have a vote of the board to put the old ping pong table into surplus status so that we can dispose of it. And I don't know if we need to take a vote to accept the new ping pong table. So Joe, do you have answers to those questions?
Yeah, I do. So I think that the agenda was already posted, so it's hard to add that to an item for surplus. But we could definitely put it on the next agenda for an official vote to declare the old one surplus. As for the new one, if it was raised, if it was donated, the money was to build it was raised by the Friends of the Council on Aging, that's their purpose. So you don't have to accept the gift. That it automatically is something that they can do, part of their charter. So if, you know.
Good night,
buddy.
In the meantime,
So we go.
meantime, if everybody could just mute if everybody could mute so that the board can talk, please. In the meantime, if I can get the DPW to pick up the old ping pong table and hold it at the DPW yard until the board makes a vote to declare surplus.
Oh,
later.
nuggets.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so they can just pick it up and sort of put it someplace and then we.
And
could
then once
declare
it's
it surplus.
declared surplus, they can dispose of it. That's fine.
Okay, perfect. Well, those are the two things that I had and I've been on the board for 5 minutes. So there you go. Thank you.
And just quickly, thank you, Rosemary. But a big thanks to everybody who served on the master planning steering committee. It was a couple of year project. We did restructure a few times. Big kudos to the Barrett Planning Group, you know, to Joe, to your staff, Patrick, who helped out, all the committee members. There was a lot of hours and input, as Rosemary said. I'm very happy with the final product, and it does go to the planning board to get officially adopted. We'll see what they come back with, but Marnie was heavily involved in the process the entire time, so I'm hoping that'll be an efficient process. So we'll get that out there and published on the website once it's adopted. So again, thanks to everyone involved.
Madam Chair, select board, I don't know who showed yet. I believe Tom may have joined. Tom Myers, are you here? Trying to track all the people coming in. I thought I saw him join, but maybe he hasn't. I'm sorry. I'll keep my eyes out.
You're on mute, Caroline, if you're speaking to us.
Oh, that's too bad because I said some really good stuff.
I could tell it was amazing.
Was it the gesticulating? I was just gonna say, the next up is public comment, but it's public comment for things that are not currently on the agenda. I know we have a lot of folks here who want to join in the conversations about items that are on the agenda, but this specific public comment time is just for public comment on anything that isn't currently on the agenda.
Can I just chime in, Joe? I'm here, just so you know.
Is that you? Is that you with the 781-844?
No, that's not my number, but
Oh,
I'm
okay,
going
I
to be
see- I
jumping
see
on my.
you there. Okay, you're right next to that person. All right, gotcha.
Perfect. So anybody here for public comment not on items currently on the agenda? No. All right. So first up on our business agenda is organization of the select board for the coming year. And we start with nomination and votes for select board chair.
Well, I'd like to nominate Caroline, you as the chair for this year. I know you're in your third year going into it. You did a great job as vice chair. I think you lead good discussions on all the topics that we bring to the table. So if you are willing and able, I'd like to nominate you.
Second that.
I am as willing and able as I can be willing and able. So.
Just check the mute switch every now and then.
She's capable of a great many things. All right.
So we did have a second, Tom.
Yep.
Tom second.
Yep, that was a second.
All right. If any further nominations. All right, then we can take a roll call vote. Tom, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Bill,
Bill Wilson, yes.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
and awkwardly Caroline Beaulieu, aye. All right. Well, we'll see how this goes, guys. It's gonna be a real carnival. Second up, we have nominations and votes for the select board vice chair.
I'd like to, if I may, nominate Bill Wilson for the vice chair.
I second. I definitely agree with that.
Happy to help you out, Caroline, and work with the rest of the team.
Perfect. All right. If no further nominations, I will take a roll call vote. Tom,
Yes, for me.
awesome. Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, I.
Bill,
Bill Wilson, yes.
and Caroline Beaulieu, aye. Congratulations. And lastly, we have nomination and votes for select board clerk / secretary. I know, Tom, you have done an admirable job in your current role, and I asked if you would be, willing to continue, and you said yes. So I will nominate Tom as secretary, clerk.
Second.
I graciously accept.
Why, thank you. Thank you. All right.
There's that.
If there are no further nominations, I will take a roll call vote. Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, I.
Bill,
Bill Wilson, yes.
Tom,
Tom Myers, yes.
and finally myself, Caroline Beaulieu, aye. All right, and with that, we have officially organized for the next year. Thanks to everybody, and we will move on. Next up is approve appointment of our former beloved chair, Sean Farrell, to the Community Preservation Committee. I will entertain a motion to approve our friend Sean.
I move that we appoint Sean Farrell to
Go
the
ahead, Bill.
Community
You got it.
Preservation Committee. Oh, sorry, Tom.
Second.
Second by Rosie. There is a
Maybe we'd like to hear from Sean,
Yeah.
I don't know if he's.
Do I need to sell it before you
Yeah,
vote?
yeah,
do you have
convince us.
any references or?
Well, you're just gonna have to go for it. First, might I say just congratulations, Rosie, on getting back on the board, and congratulations to the new Madam Chair and Bill as Vice Chair. You're gonna do a great job. And you, Tom, as well. You just keep on keeping on.
Sean, thanks for staying involved.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, Sean, that you've been a long time part of the Preservation Committee, and this is just sort of a continuity of service. We certainly have, glowing endorsement from anyone who knows that the application has been put through. So unless there's further discussion, I'm happy to take a vote on the motion. Cool. Roll call, Tom,
Tom Myers, yes.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, I.
Bill,
Bill Wilson, yes.
Caroline Beaulieu, aye. It's official, Sean Farrell.
All right. Thank you all. I'm off to a baseball game. Good luck with the rest of
Congratulations,
the agenda.
Sean.
I'll
It's
watch it on
chillier.
tape.
It's chillier than you think. I just came from the fields. Bring the gloves.
I will. All
I
right.
just
Take
came
care,
from the
everybody.
field as well.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye, Sean.
All right. The next two are our favorite topics. There's banners, y'all. So first we have a banner request for the Hamilton Wyndham Garden Club on the banner rack on Bay Road. I'm looking in the packet. Is there a?
Yeah, they didn't provide a description of the banner, but it's an annual thing. They do it every year. So they are aware of the board's rules on size, and they'll comply.
Okay.
Size and duration.
All right, I will entertain a motion on the approval of the banner.
Sure, I move that we approve the Hamilton Wyndham Garden Club banner from May 4th to May 11th, 2024.
Second.
Second from Bill. All right, any further discussion on the placement of the banner on the board? All right, roll call vote, Tom,
Tom Myers, yes.
Bill,
Bill Wilson, yes.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, I.
Caroline Beaulieu, aye. We have another request for a banner. This one is for the Patton Homestead Spring Music Series, which we are delighted to welcome back to the park. Is this what year is this for the music series?
This is this is for the one on here at Patton Homestead. So this is the second year we've done it, and it's the second year that we're asking for the second year we're asking to put the banner on the tennis courts. It'd be the same size banner as the
Drop
one
it.
last year with the dates. And we
Drop it.
asked for a little bit longer duration of
Mac.
hanging, just so the people know
Mac.
what the dates are.
Good boy.
Whomever has a good boy named Mac who needs to drop it, please mute. Thank you. Okay. It's funny that you say that because I actually remember last year there was some confusion about the fact that it didn't say Homestead in big, so people thought it was the banner for the music series at Patton Park.
Oh, well, I'll make sure that it says I'll make sure that it says Patton Homestead this year.
Yeah,
Jane,
and I
can
think
you
it
do
does.
that?
I
I
think
think I wasn't muted.
I'm sorry, is somebody speaking?
Was
Yeah, I mean,
somebody
I think it did. I just might give them that feedback that because there's a music series at Patton Park and the sign is at Patton Park, they just make it clear that it's at Patton Homestead because people were showing up in the wrong places. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the Patton Homestead Spring Music Series banner as outlined.
I
I'll
move
make-
that we approve the Patton Homestead Music Series banner on the tennis courts as outlined with the dates provided.
Second,
Second from Rosie. All right, all in favor, roll call. Tom,
Tom Myers, yes.
Bill,
Bill Wilson, yes.
Rosie.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
All right, Caroline Bollieu, aye. The ayes have it. All righty. Next up is approve the use of the perpetual care funds, $3,084 for annual grub treatment at Hamilton Cemetery, and a vote. I know that this is the third grub treatment I've been a part of, so I can confirm that it's sort of a BAU item for us. I know we talked ad nauseum last year about alternatives or safe whatever, and I think we got a really good rundown last year from Tim about why they do it and why they do it the way they do it and how it works. So I don't feel like we necessarily need to open that can of grub worms.
Good one.
Yeah, but I'm happy to entertain a motion first and then we can discuss if folks want to.
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve use of perpetual care funds in the amount of $3,084 for an annual grub treatment at the Hamilton Cemetery.
Second,
Any further discussion?
Nope.
Those grubs, y'all, those grubs. All right, roll call vote. Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill,
Bill Wilson, aye.
Tom,
Tom Myers, yes.
Caroline Bollieu, yes. The ayes have it. All right. The next item is reviewing the draft letter to the MSBA regarding the offer of a 50-year lease to the Cutler School site to Hamilton Wenham Regional School District, as well as a vote. In our packets, you will see a draft of the letter. Do we want to do a dramatic reading? Or do folks feel like they have access to the letter in the packet? It's not super long. I'm happy to just. It just says this letter is to inform Hamilton Wenham Regional School District of the town of Hamilton's commitment to the ongoing Cutler School building project and of the town's intention and willingness to commit to a long-term lease of the Cutler School property located at 237 Ashbury Street in Hamilton, Mass, based on the will of the voters. On March 18th, 2024, at a regularly scheduled and posted select board meeting, the Hamilton School Board voted 4-0 of the members present in favor of committing the town to a 50-year lease of the property at 237 Ashbury Street to the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District to continue to operate an elementary school at the site. The select board vote does not favor any particular school building option currently being considered by the Cutler School Building Committee during the feasibility study, and the board expects that the Cutler School Building Committee will consider all public input before making a decision on a preferred option. The select board would plan to bring the issue of a 50-year lease to the annual town meeting in April 2025 so that the meeting can consider the lease as well as the final school building option. So, I mean, really, it's just a discussion about the extension of specifically the lease of Cutler, insofar as we have to have, as a part of the mass school building process, we need to have that lease secured. Otherwise, we can't move forward in the process. Happy to entertain a motion or so we can continue to discuss.
I move that we approve the draft letter to the MSBA, which offers a 50-year lease to the Cutler School site to the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District.
Second.
Any discussion from the board or anyone who's
No, I just think it's, as you said, Caroline, as part of the process, the MSBA requires that the town, commits to a long-term lease so that the MSBA will match funding, for the product. So we definitely want that. The only thing I would add is, outside of this letter, we do have a commitment, I believe, with the schools to reopen the regional district agreement. So we can just clean that up a little bit. I think the district has offered a willingness to do that. And I know Wenham has as well. I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that.
Just Ann Butterworth, if you could mute your mic. We're getting some feedback.
Sorry, I don't.
All right. If there's no further discussion, I will take a roll call vote. Tom,
Myers, yes.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill,
Bill Wilson, yes.
and Caroline Beaulieu, yes. All right. The final item on the agenda is discussing the draft agreement with Chabaco Realty Trust for the Friendly 40B and support at the ZBA. And I know that there are an impressive amount of folks here to listen to this conversation and join in on this conversation. So the first thing that we can and will do is we will take a motion, which will open up discussion, and the board will discuss it, and then we will open it for public comment. If and when you have a comment, just you'll raise your hand, and we'll do our best to sort of scan for comments. I completely understand that there is a lot of reasonable passion around this, but let's just make sure that we give each other the room to speak and not talk over each other. I know it's really difficult over Zoom, but we will do our best. So I will entertain a motion first, if anybody would like to make one.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments. First, that this is a very complicated issue. We have no, if this is the first time we've discussed this, there are no documents that include the application included in the packet here, so I have no idea what we're even discussing. And the second issue is there are no documents from the prior application from this developer that was declined by the planning board. So I have lots of questions about whether we should even be discussing this without adequate background. I think to discuss this intelligently, we should have the current application in front of us, and we should also have the planning board's decision. So for those reasons, I'm thinking it might be a wise choice to table this for tonight until we have such documents in front of us that we can evaluate.
Now, when you say there's nothing in the packet are you the draft agreement from 417, the memorandum is in the packet?
Well, that's just that's just a draft agreement. It's not the application itself. And in order to have an academic discussion of this, we should understand exactly what this in detail, what this entails. If the town is being asked to support this development in the form of a 40B, how can we do that if we don't have any information about it?
Tom, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. I know that, the history here, as we all well know, is the developer originally obviously applied for the permit for 133, which was rejected by the planning board. One of the concerns during that time was that if the developer came back with the 40B, there was not much that we could do about it, if anything, which was why we had hoped that we would be able to come to some agreement with the developer during 133. Now that there is 40B, where I agree with you, like we can look and compare the two. But I think I know I've read all 70 emails that we got today. There was a lot of language around the select board has to stop this. The select board cannot make this go through. And I just want to be very clear that the select board cannot stop this. This is because of the 40B. This is in the purview of the zoning board, and it doesn't even require the sort of requisite steps through the planning board. And so a lot of what we're doing here is, and I agree with you, Rosie, we don't have to send that letter or approve that letter today. But for all the folks that have joined, I wanted to sort of give that information that the select board cannot, we do not have purview over stopping this at this point. This is, and I will give the mic to Tom. I know that he had met, I believe, with the developer 2 weeks ago to sort of talk about the shifts in the plan. And, you know, for better or for worse, it is the same plan, but with the affordable component. So Tom, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I'll just to echo what you said. I mean, essentially, you know, this letter would allow us, you know, to move into a friendly 40B situation in the sense that, you know, the town, you know, like Caroline spoke to, you know, we aren't necessarily able to stop it at this point. It's going to go to the ZBA, and you know, really there's very minimal restrictions on that and what the state will, you know, kind of push these forward. So we're looking to potentially have a supportive 40B in the sense of that the town may get something out of this. And when we met with the developers a few weeks ago, you know, it's essentially the same plan. We talked through what their plan looks like, and there is additional housing that they would add to it to accommodate for the affordable piece, but it's not many units. And Joe, correct me on the numbers. I think it was another 15 units or something like that, or
It's another 9 units above the
9
original
units, okay,
request,
yeah.
but 15 of the units now would be affordable. Also, just so you know, Attorney Amy Questle, Town Council on this matter, is on board, is here. Amy represented the town in the recent discussions between the previous select board chair, Tom, myself, and the developer. The developer had asked if the town would consider, if the select board would consider supporting their application to the ZBA. So the only real decision-making process is with the ZBA in this process.
Yep.
The question here is, does the select board through the development agreement want to support the developer with the ZBA? And that is not to overstep and try and tell the ZBA what to do. It's just to provide more information to the ZBA in terms of what the developer is willing to. Amy, if you wanted to explain how the memorandum of agreement, the MOA and stuff works, that would be helpful, I think.
Yeah. So when we met with them, I mean, when they came back and they only proposed 9 additional units, which is actually fairly low compared to what they probably could have offered. And, you know, some other towns that have had similar situations, look at Ipswich, where they had, you know, a 40B come and they had ended up almost doubling what their space was. I mean, they only came back with additional 9 units. And we met with the developers and were able to negotiate some terms that would be favorable to the town, some stipends towards the town that will help towards extending the water line to get folks in that neighborhood access to town water, so that are currently on well water. So there are some favorable items for the town, you know, if we, you know, support this as a friendly 40B and submit this letter in support of their application. You know, if we do oppose it, essentially, we're not really going to get anything out of this, and it's still going to go forward, you know, as a 40B. We don't really have the opportunity to stop it, but we do have the opportunity to benefit from it and get something out of this proposal. And that's what this letter would essentially do. We would, you know, sign off it, support it, and be able to have this agreement in place that allows us to have some benefits from this development that's going to move forward regardless.
Amy, anything to add?
Not much. Both Joe and Tom did a very good job. So what we have here is there a 40B has been filed. An application was filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Zoning Board of Appeals will be opening that hearing next week. And in the process of applying for their 40B, the developer did reach out and has offered some mitigation that right now, because this mitigation was offered prior to the ZBA issuing a decision on the matter, we have the opportunity to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the developer, which The benefit of doing that is that we then would have a contract with the developer. And so therefore, while this mitigation could also become a condition, with a 40B, once a decision is issued and conditions are issued, the developer by regulation, by state regulation, has the right to come back and request a modification to that decision at any time. With having this separate MOA, in my opinion, the benefit of that is that we have a contract with the developer. They can't necessarily change that mitigation without coming back to the select board and renegotiating. Whereas in the zoning board context, unfortunately, as a municipality, we are somewhat, our hands are somewhat tied when it comes to 40B, particularly when it comes to the Housing Appeals Committee. The Housing Appeals Committee is extremely developer friendly. If there were any kind of pushback on a request, say a request for a modification, if they took that to the HAC, our chances are extremely low of succeeding there. So really, this is just something that because the developer came to the town early, we have the ability to take advantage of that. It is a policy decision by the select board. I simply just put together a draft memorandum of agreement based on the terms that the developer has proposed. The developer has not seen this yet, so it's really just something for the select board to consider.
So for the folks who don't have the packet in front of them, some examples, and again, the zoning board of appeals operates independently from the select board. They make their choice. They do everything they do. All this letter does is say, if this goes through, if you go, yes, here are the things that we've pre-negotiated, for lack of a better term, on behalf of the town for this going through. And as we said, this does not even necessarily mean that anybody here is enthusiastic or delighted by the idea of this, but we put this forward in writing, in law, so that if it does go through, we've protected some of these sort of mitigation measures. So things like a trail connection through Chabaco Woods and a perpetual easement for the town to the trails, public parking at the trailhead, conservation restriction of all of the open space relative to, the non-developed site. So it's 56.81 acres. That conservation restriction is held by the town. Also support for the Council on Aging. So donating $70,000 to the town for a handicapped vehicle, payments, as they sort of sell parts of it. And so these are the things that we've negotiated. I think if we sort of look at the four corners of sort of this motion and this memorandum, I think what we're saying is, A, does this represent the things that we want to ensure are in there? Are there other things that we would want to ensure that are in there? But it's not necessarily a ringing endorsement. It's just saying they came to the town said, if you're going to do this and you're going to move forward, here are some things that we would like to ensure that you make happen. We put them here so that everybody, as Amy said, is sort of tied to them. But we as the select board do not have purview over the zoning board's decision or, sort of any rights around the 40B. It doesn't work the same way as the permit pulled for the original 133 project. That said, Rosie, I still want to honor if this is something that you do feel like we want to table, we can certainly talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will just say a few things here, and then I will ask to table this officially. And the first thing I'd like to bring up is that I'll just reiterate that there are no documents that give us any information of the original application versus the application currently under consideration. I appreciate that Tom says he was told it's essentially the same, but I haven't seen that. And as a member of this board, I have the responsibility to investigate those documents and look at them. Secondly, if it is the same document, then I'm perplexed why we would enter into a friendly 40B with a developer whose application was unanimously rejected by the planning board for it was unanimously rejected by the planning board for numerous and multiple environmental risks. We cannot ignore that. I believe if this is the same application as was declined by the planning board, then there are 49 waivers to all sorts of things requested by this developer. And although there may be some tax benefit to the town, I think that is just a minor part of everything that is Hamilton. We need to consider our environment. We need to consider the quality of life. We need to consider our water supply. We already have a well that's out of order from PFAS on School Street. So how I or anybody in this board at this time could sit and just say, this is not an endorsement of it, I think is incorrect, because by agreeing to this, we would be saying that we do agree to this. And so for those reasons, I would like to see both of the documents and be able to talk about it with the board in detail about what makes this something substantively that the Board of Selectmen could approve. And I certainly agree with the sentiment that we are not the ZBA. The ZBA makes the final decision, but that is absolutely no reason for us to acquiesce to these, what have been deemed as unreasonable requests. I don't know one way or the other because I haven't had a chance to look at them yet. But those are my reasonings to state that this issue should be.
Rosie, if I can, and I agree with you on very much of that, and I respect that. I do want to clarify that a lot of this was influenced by town council because of their belief that we would not be able to stop a 40B. And so this is really a hedge to say, if this is something that we cannot stop, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect the things we want to protect. And I think that's a good reason to go back to this and modify. But I don't want it to when we say this is an endorsement, this is our Hail Mary, that we have been told that there is very little chance that we can stop this because of how friendly everybody is to 40B and how easy it is for folks to get by. So what I want to be really careful of is we don't accidentally cut off our nose to spite our face and say, we're going to refuse to put anything in writing and we're going to refuse. And then similar to what happened in the last process, those protections go away. We now don't have them at all.
Well, with all respect to my fellow board members, these mitigations are ridiculous. These are the things that this developer had already agreed to. The only difference is the support for the Council on Aging. But a trail connection was already agreed to. I know a little bit about the prior application. The parking was already agreed to. The conservation restriction was already agreed to. So I'm not sure what benefit I see here. I mean, even if we did agree to go along with this, there are many other issues that need to be considered before we as a responsible board put our signature on this.
Absolutely. And I think that is as good a reason as any. My only question back would be, when does the ZBA meet?
They meet the first, but that doesn't impair us from putting off our endorsement or non-endorsement of this.
But Amy, did you say this needed to happen before that went to the ZBA?
So, so ideally, yes, because once they open up the public hearing with the ZBA, it's opened and they don't necessarily have to offer the things that they're offering. What I would like to note is that while certain mitigation was offered at the planning board, that mitigation does not necessarily need to be offered at the Zoning Board of Appeals with a 40B. There are two items that were offered that were not offered at the planning board. One of them was the Council on Aging vehicle, and the other one was the water line extension work. So those two things were not even on the table at planning board. The others, Ms. Kennedy is correct that that the trailhead parking and the easement, the trail easement and the CR were offered at the planning board. However, the planning board was a special permit process. It was a discretionary permit process. A 40B is not necessarily as discretionary as the planning board. The other thing that member Kennedy is correct about is that waivers. So I know that she stated that there was about 40-something waivers at the planning board process. Under 40B, the zoning board is going to step into the shoes of all other local boards. So they will step into the shoes of the planning board, the Conservation Commission, Board of Health, historical, any board that, any local board. And so the waiver list at the ZBA is going to be significant. And, you know, the ZBA is not able to deny waivers under 40B unless those waivers are not consistent with local needs. Unfortunately, because Hamilton has not yet reached 10% of affordability, there is a presumption that affordable housing outweighs all other local needs. So we really do have some cards stacked against us. I did do a training with the 40B a couple of weeks ago where I did stress that that what we want to do is take advantage of conditioning this project to get the best project that we can for Hamilton. And so that's just, this MOA is just one step in doing that. If we wait to enter into an MOA, we do risk losing any of this mitigation that they're offering, which again, even the trail easement, even the trail parking and the CR, which was previously issued at the planning board or previously offered, I'm sorry, at the planning board, it's not guaranteed that it will be offered at CBA.
So to be clear, are they offering this, or is this a proposal we're sending that we would like?
They offered it. They offered it in their mitigation as mitigation to the 40B.
And we talk about what percent we are with affordable stock. I know, Joe, we sent a letter, I believe, from the town last November to the Housing Authority with concerns. Was there a response to that, or do we not expect one? We just want that, you know, in the background as they make a decision. And as such, I'm just wondering, could we be in safe harbor with some of the other projects that we're doing in town and just showing progress towards a goal without this?
So it's my understanding that the town was in safe harbor for a brief period. However, what happens is that units that are on the subsidized housing inventory, which is called the SHI, units go on and off the SHI because under the state regulations, when a comprehensive permit is issued and once it's filed with the town clerk, all of the affordable units qualify for SHI. Those units, there has to be a building permit issued within 1 year of that decision. If there's a building permit hasn't been issued, they come off the SHI. Once the building permit is issued, they go back on the SHI, and then we have to have a certificate of occupancy within a year. If we don't get a CO within a year, they come off the SHI, and then they can go back on the SHI once we have a CO. So what we had was we had safe harbor based on our housing production plan. We had significant moving progress towards affordable housing. And so we did reach safe harbor. However, unfortunately, the development that allowed us to get that safe harbor, a year went by without building permits being issued. And therefore, those units are now not on the SHI.
So I'd like to make another point that for all of this disturbance of the land on Tobacco Road, 133 Essex, we will gain a total of 15 affordable units. And I think that's a minuscule number when one looks at the size of this development. And again, I understand we are not in a position to say no to it, but seems there is lots of room for additional mitigation. And I worry that we're not asking hard questions of this developer. For instance, we have a new stormwater protection bylaw that we could ask the developer to adhere to. The reality is that the benefits to the town have to outweigh the cost to the town, and that's not just cost in putting in a road. It's the long-term cost to the town. So I think we really should take time to look at this development agreement and really think about whether this is something we want to endorse. I understand the ZBA has the call, but we shouldn't just acquiesce easily. And I believe that this development agreement could be a lot stronger. And I do want to look at the other documents, as I would assume that my board mates would want to do. We need to understand what the developer is asking for. Why did the planning board deny it? We need to ask those hard questions before we assent to anything.
Well, we have the planning board decision. We've seen that, right? We understand the topography, we understand the steep slopes, the water, the storm damage, and none of that goes away, right, with a 40B. And you're right, it's minuscule, with 15 units. On the other hand, we've got a landowner trying to sell their property. I do have a hard time telling a private landowner what to do. So this could take two paths, right? We could mitigate, as you put it, with what's going on with a 40B. But what about the litigate portion of it? What happens if we anger some folks and it either goes this way and we end up with something that happened in Ipswich, or do we just jump back in a courtroom and we're going to incur a lot more costs? And I don't know those answers too, Rosie. So I'm actually kind of agreeing too. It's like, what are the potential paths? I do know there's probably a path, and how do we control that as a town versus the rights of a private landowner?
Right. I think the planning board had mentioned, I listened in to some of their meetings, and as they were reaching their decision, they stated to the developer that this could have been done in a way that there was very little resistance to it. And I don't know exactly what that means. That's probably why I want an opportunity to look at the planning board decision and both of the applications. But I think something as important as this and as impactful as this, as evidenced by the multitude of people who are on this Zoom, we deserve to show our residents that we are doing our due diligence and thinking about how we could make this a win-win situation for the residents and for the developer. This particular compilation of the development, I certainly have no issues with. Over 55, that's fine with me. But I do think what it entails physically is something that we shouldn't just sign off on tonight.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, and I'm happy to entertain a motion to table this, but we are under that tabling, we are agreeing that this will go to the ZBA without a signed a draft agreement from us. And what we're hearing from Amy is that may mean that it doesn't hold water. So if we choose to table, which again, I'm happy to entertain that motion, we are doing so knowing that a later date mitigation agreement may not hold water because we did it outside the order of operations. Are we clear that's we're clear on that as we may take a motion to table?
Yes. And do we know how many units could go there if 59 wasn't the answer? I think, Tom, you referenced a large number in Ipswich. Is that a known number, or is that something we think could happen, but technically couldn't happen? I don't know the answer to that.
I mean,
they were resistant to reducing the overall number of units, as I remember within the planning board process, just because of profitability.
Right. So, but could they? So 59 gave them a good profitability number, but could they go to 150? If we angered them and didn't agree to kind of work with them to mitigate some of this. Are we mitigating the number to 59 at this point? Could it be larger, or do we don't know that?
I mean, they filed the plans, and Amy, keep me honest. I mean, the plans are as the plans are now. That's what they've put forth is the essentially mostly
Verification.
the bill that they had proposed before, but adding these affordable housing units into that build.
Yes,
Right.
it's very
Yeah, I mean, there-
common when you go from a non-40B project to a 40B project to have additional units because of the requirement of the affordable units. Now, unfortunately, with 40B, you have difficult sites, and you have developers that want to maximize those properties. Now, these are going to be for sale over 55 units, and so therefore they would be duplexes and townhouse style or single family, those kind of style. But there's nothing, to answer Member Wilson's question, there's nothing that they says they can't come back with four-story apartment buildings. In Ipswich, we're dealing with 4 3-story apartment buildings, so 214 units. So on a lot less land than this. So it's really nothing you can. It's nothing I can really answer as to how many units they can actually produce. But their model right now is over 55. Which does somewhat limit the type of buildings that they can construct for over 55.
Okay, so in the interest of keeping things productive, and because Rosie has asked to table it, which I think means we will table it. I think we should be very exacting about how we move forward, though, which is I think we should say that the plan is to have this on the next agenda for the next planning board meeting, which I believe is
Next
May.
select board meeting. Next select board meeting.
The next select board meeting, which is May, what is the date?
6th, Monday, May 6th.
Monday, May 6th. At which point, I mean, I think there are plenty of people on this call who I know have our email addresses. I think we can take, Rosie, to your point, reviewing the application of what is being presented. I think we can certainly take some time to do that. I think having a draft list of additional mitigations that we would like to have added seems appropriate. And again, for folks that are on the call, certainly happy to have folks put their feedback there. Again, because of where we're sort of dancing, I mean, there's part of me that wants to ask the ZBA or someone if they can even push this out, if there's a fear that we won't be able. I hesitate to go back to the developer with a 10-fold list of things when they're at a point where they can tell us to go pound sand. But I'm happy to give us, the next 2 weeks to do those things and try to come back with a list of mitigations that feels more reflective of what we would want in order to consider this friendly. Does that capture what we're saying?
That's exactly correct. There are all these sort of threats and worst case scenarios, but our responsibility is to act in the best interest of this town and not do it because we're fearful of something.
Yep, I can appreciate that.
Should we, Carolyn, I like that. Should we invite somebody from the planning board to participate in that discussion? I'd also maybe like to better understand.
Well, do you mean the zoning board of appeals? Because the planning board
Well, I
won't
meant the
have a
planning
role.
board.
Won't have-
I was gonna get there. I don't know if we could have the zoning board because they're gonna be, on deck, so to speak. But, understanding more the planning board and their findings initially, then also understanding, from the lens of the ZBA, what local kind of bylaws, if you will, or things can they look at and enforce versus what state regs might come into play that they have no power over, and which ones of some of the planning board's biggest concerns, which side of that aisle do they fall on? If that makes sense.
The planning board has no involvement in the 40B. The application, should have been sent to local boards. Local boards, what I recommend is that local boards issue comments in writing to the ZBA. So the ZBA then has all of those comments in front of them, because I've recommended that the ZBA, the first kind of action the ZBA takes is to go out to peer review. And that way, all of these comments from all of these local boards are in writing and we can get those to the peer reviewer. This is a different project than the planning board project, because of the affordability and because we are under 760 CMR 56, which is a state regulation that's controls 40Bs. So, and I wouldn't recommend having a member of the zoning board here either, because the zoning board needs to review the project as presented to them.
Got it.
I do think there are things, and we can unearth it, Bill or Rosie, when the planning board decision came out about the former 133 Essex, there, Marnie did a very good job outlining in there the reasons why it had been rejected. And I think a lot of it was repeat occurrence of maximization of space, like everything went like very far to the edges. And so I think it would be worth, to Rosie's point, over the next 2 weeks, sort of reviewing that original document, figuring out where those other 15, if we were already at max space and the planning board said no, like where do those, and I agree, Amy, like it has no bearing, but I think if folks are sort of wondering, that may lead to additional mitigation criteria. I don't know how much leverage we have to say, like, cut out 10 units and give us an extra 10-foot buffer on all sides. They may just say that's adorable, but if those are things that we want to sort of bring to the table in 2 weeks, I think we can certainly put together our wish list and then see what happens.
So, just one other comment I would make, that what I've read about friendly 40Bs, when a town is asked to, in a sense, endorse a project, that developers often will agree to adhere to some of the local bylaws. And I don't see any of that in this agreement. And so things like, as I said, our stormwater management plan, we could consider that. There are lots of ways that we have leverage, because if we agree to this, then it's going to be easier for this project to go through. And I would think that the developer would want that. So our goal is to take as much as we can to protect our town and the environment. And so, yes, it'd be great to have the opportunity to do that.
Okay. I feel, as y'all know, I feel conflicted. I feel for myriad reasons, I do feel like there is an urgency to this. But again, I'm at the will of the board if y'all would like to table and do that over the next 2 weeks. I don't want to, I'm not afraid of a developer. I respect developers. I love developers. I don't want to do that, but I want to be really thoughtful and mindful in the way that we interact with the developer, because as I hear from council and have heard from council over the last couple of weeks, we do not have a lot of leverage. And that's been the message that I've heard loud and clear. And so I just want to make sure that we don't accidentally get ourselves in a pickle.
Well, all they can do is say no. And if we just give up without even trying to assert some of our local bylaws for the benefit of our town, our environment, and our residents, then what's the point of us being here?
Yep.
One other thing, yeah, okay, no, I'm sorry, I said that. Okay.
Okay. All right, so it's tabled, and we will review in 2 weeks.
So, Madam Chair, just so you know, I'm not available on May 6th. I have a town meeting that I have to attend in Harwich.
Okay.
So I just wanted you to know that.
Yeah, what I would love is maybe, I'm going to say this that we're going to do it. I'm hopeful that before that meeting, we should be able to send you just even a back of the napkin list, and you can tell us which things are naive and which things you think
Sure.
are reasonable. And I
Yep.
think as long as we sort of have those notes, that would
Yep.
be plenty for the conversation.
Sure, no
So-
problem.
So my question is, why are we not, why would we not be sending these mitigation items to the developer? Why would we get a stop from our town council? Can you explain that to me, Amy?
I might have missed some of that. Get something
But
from
we
town.
already sort of, we talked, Tom and Sean had a conversation with the developer
Mhm.
where this initial list of
Mhm.
mitigations were brought up. And there wasn't an appetite for a huge list of mitigations. And I think part of what you're seeing right now is folks seeing that like, this was a list that the developer felt was represented sort of where they were willing to go. And so given that we're already in this situation and the timeline is dwindling, I just want to make sure that we don't present a list of 15 things that even town council says, you're not going to get this, it's not reasonable, and it's probably going to upset folks. Because we've been told that there's not much of an appetite here. The developer doesn't have to acquiesce to any of these things. And as we've said, like, we're going to be past the deadline for the ZBA anyway, so they don't have to even do any of them, in which case it doesn't go into restriction. We don't get trailhead, we don't get parking, we don't get any of those things. It becomes private property.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in to add that, to Caroline's point, we did have a long meeting with them. We discussed a lot of these issues, and these are, a lot of the mitigation efforts that we agreed to and that there was appetite for. And I understand your point, Rosie, about going back and trying to get additional mitigation efforts, but I think, we're really just pushing the ball down the court and, maybe we get something, maybe we don't, but I think at the end of the day, we're risking a lot in the sense that we may lose all of it and we may get nothing out of this if we do nothing before the zoning board appeals opens their public hearing. So, I'm certainly open to, tabling this and moving this down the road, but, we've already had a lengthy discussion with the developers and town council, and Joe and Sean and I met with them. So, we can certainly do that, but, there is a risk there, and I think everyone should be aware of that.
There's a risk if we do nothing and just sign this agreement with these very minor mitigation measures.
We're
And I
not.
think we
We're
need to
not.
look at
We're
that.
not, we're not doing that at all. I want to be very clear. The only reason I was saying to engage Amy is that she has a ton of expertise here and she knows the tone and tenor of the room, and she can sort of say like, they're not going to hatch frogs for us twice a year. That's not a thing they're going to do. But that's sort of what I want to be careful of.
Right. I just want to emphasize that we are here because people elected us to be here. And these people who are sitting on this Zoom this evening are not here because they have nothing else to do. They care greatly about this issue, and we represent them. So let's do what we can to make this the fairest we can for the town.
Absolutely. And I read every single email that came in.
I couldn't even, there were too many.
There were so many, but what I want to be very clear about is that we knew that if the project did not go through before and this happened, that our hands were very tied. We knew this. I talked to Joanna Copeland about this 2 years ago. If this takes this turn, we are in hot water. And that's why there was a lot of pressure, not because people wanted to develop on Chabaco, but because they knew that if we didn't get what we needed and wanted during that process, there was a way to circumvent that process and get us here. And I'm not suggesting we take this agreement, but I think we need to recognize the situation that we're in.
Yeah, and I'll just make this comment that I'm not a glass half empty person. I'm a glass half full. And I think that we can make this stronger. Maybe we can't, but I'm not going to give up without making a concerted effort to do so. So
I appreciate that. I absolutely do.
Madam Chair, you're going to be tabling this then for a vote?
So
I
we will table that. There will be.
So I'd
no-
suggest probably not a right time then. If you're not going to be taking a vote tonight, I would suggest probably not the right time to get into public comment. I think that it would kind of take us down a rabbit hole and would unfairly characterize the developer who isn't even really represented here. So
Agreed. All right. So we will table, but the plan is to have this conversation again at the May 6th select board meeting. In the meantime, we will commit to sort of comparing those documents. And Rose, anything you don't have, absolutely reach out. I mean, it's somewhere in our email. And then putting together a draft list of mitigations. And again, as I said, anyone who's on the call, please feel free to share sort of your perspectives there as well. And we can add those to that list. And hopefully by the end of, mid next week, we can get something over to Amy just for her to review. So we have her comments going into that meeting.
Yeah, if everyone wants to send me your comments, the things that you want sent to Amy, I'll send it all to Amy in one package, so she's not getting filled in 5 different emails. Make it simple for you, everybody.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do.
All right. Well, that was a healthy non-discussion for the discussion. I appreciate that. I'm gonna look this up and maybe one of y'all knows. So I've gotten mixed feedback about the second someone says table, you table, but then the rules of order on the Mass website say that you have to take a motion for table. And I still don't know what the answer to that is. But we'll figure it out.
I was wondering.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have to make a motion and it has to be approved by a majority vote for a tabling.
Yeah,
That's what it says on the Mass Gov website, but I don't know.
I think that's what it says on the MassGov website, but I believe that Hamilton Select Board has a local rule that says the first time that an item is brought to the board, any member can move to table and it has to be tabled. So to not allow you to act in one meeting if somebody is uncomfortable with it. So
I mean,
I believe that's a local rule. for
the
the
single
select board.
most powerful word in Hamilton town government.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this is a great conversation. I expect that we'll hear a lot more from folks by email and online, but obviously look forward to doing the best that we can to try to figure out how to get around some of this. I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda, unless anybody has any new business items. Rosie brought up putting on the agenda next time for the ping pong table.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I'll have the old one taken out of the senior center. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any other-
I think likely Caroline as well. Bill and I are probably ready for another discussion on town manager contract
Okay.
with the rest of the board.
I mean, is that
Is
executive
it
session?
executive session? I don't know. I think we're in a good spot. I don't know. We can talk about that when we kind of put the agenda together, whether it should or shouldn't. Just want
Okay.
to make sure we meet about it.
Okay. Sounds good. Also, and I'm assuming we'll do this next time, committees and board assignments.
Liaisons?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you want, I will circulate tomorrow the list of committees that the members could then get back to the chair with their preferences for committees that they want to be on. That's typically how it's been done in the past. I meant to get to you all today, but I was reading a lot of emails today. We can get it back to you. We can get it out to you tomorrow. And you'll have a couple weeks to log what you'd like to choose, and then the chair can have maybe you at the second meeting in May, you could announce what
Okay.
What the assignments will be. That's by the chair's selection. So
Okay. Bill, you're probably gonna have to relinquish COA because nobody does it like Rosie.
She can have
Oh,
it.
yeah. Love the COA.
I know that I do too. Any update on the school building meeting that happened earlier? I don't know, Tom, if you had to leave early or
We're voting.
Yeah, Joe
Yeah.
and I had to leave early, but there was a great turnout, a lot of comments, but we left before the agenda really kicked off because we had to make
Okay.
it here. So I don't have an update, but Joe, I don't know if you heard anything.
I haven't heard. I had to leave about 15 minutes into the meeting to get here and set this up for you guys. So I was not. I don't know how the vote went tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Turnout from the public, though, a lot of public comment.
I bet. It was a big day for email. It was a big day.
Oh, wow.
It's just such a big day.
Between
was
this issue and the school, I didn't get away from email all day today. That was just-
Well, these are big issues in our town,
yeah,
so
no, I get it. I get it.
I'm
There's a lot of people
thrilled
have
to be a part of it.
concerns and
That's Let's do it for
Important.
the people.
Absolutely.
All right, if there is nothing else to add to new business, I will entertain everyone's favorite motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right, roll call vote, all in favor, Tom,
Tom Myers, yes.
Bill,
Bill Wilson, yes.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
and Caroline Beaulieu, aye. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to the discussion in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Night.